A story is told of a young man in Texas. D is his name. They said they never met a stranger kind of a guy. His laugh was contagious. Whenever somebody moved into the neighborhood, even as a young person, he was the ambassador for them, to them, for them. In his mid-teen years, tragically, he met an acquaintance he shouldn't have made. One who would supply beer to underage young people. Over the next 4 decades, D drank away his health, his relationships, his job, his money, and his life, all except for the last 2 years. At age 54, somehow he found the resolve drilled deep in his heart. He emptied his bottles, stabilized his marriage. He reached out to his estranged children, exchanged the liquor store for the local AA. But hard living had taken its toll. Drinking and smoking had weakened everything inside. On a January night, he told his wife he was having trouble breathing. He already had a doctor's appointment for the next day, so they decided he would just sleep it off. With little success, around 4 a.m., he just couldn't take it any longer. With chest pain so severe, the rescue team was called. As they loaded him up to transport him to the emergency department, D waved weakly and mustered the courage to tell his wife, Donna, to not worry. Everything would be okay. Donna's son came over and picked her up, and together they drove to the hospital. By the time they got to the hospital, the attending physician had to tell them that D didn't make it. He invited them in to see his now lifeless body. As Donna was held by her son, they passed through those doors and immediately saw the last message that D could send them. Somewhere racing along that inky black highway with paramedics buzzing around him, D knew his life was slipping from him. And what Donna saw as she came into that hospital room, his now lifeless body, was his right hand resting on his leg, his 2 middle fingers folded in and his thumb stretched out. In the universal sign, I love you. Donna, somewhere, those moments, we don't know it from Dee's side of the story, but in the final moments, she believed his last message to her was to have courage. I love you. Be strong. Jesus, his last message to his disciples, the disciples of yesterday and the disciples of today, stretches his hand out at the crucifixion and at the resurrection in the universal sign of embrace. Take courage. Peace I give to you. My peace I'll give to you. Don't be afraid. And that's why Paul says, I want to know him. And I want to know the power of that resurrection.